y'all playing Instagram and all that Facebook, like, yeah, you can kill everything, but you can't be in the streets with it. It's real life. This is Jimbo From 20.
Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Big Jimbo from the Rollin 20 neighborhood Bloods. Now, James Chambers, aka Jimbo, was born in 1964 and will be raised in South Central. He would live out his childhood on 27th Street, but by the 70s, Jimbo was already getting in trouble with the law while running the streets. Eventually, there would be a shift in LA, and the dominating Crip gang would start spreading like wildfire through the South Central area. And eventually, Jimbo's block, the 27th Street, will become the foundation of the Rollin 20 neighborhood Bloods. Now, Jimbo, being from 27th Street, this clique will be known as the Deuce 7 players. Now, during his 10 years, he would attend LA High with his other homies from the neighborhood. And it's said by many people that Jimbo never turned down any fades from anyone, especially not any rival Crips, which is why they started calling him Big Jimbo. Now, this habit of squabbling and getting into mischief would have him constantly in and out of YA and camp for most of his teen years. Now, by the mid-'80s, gangbanging has spread through most of Los Angeles, and many teens and adults would lose their life during this time period. Now, Jimbo was always frontline and known to get it cracking for his hood. But by 1985, Jimbo will be arrested for being in possession of a firearm. Now, in the 80s, being the Blood in jail was extremely dangerous because they were outnumbered by the Crips heavily. But Jimbo had a fearless mentality. It was said that once he would step foot into the county, he didn't care if it was him by himself. It didn't matter how many Crips outnumber him in the Bloods, he would throw hands. Now, this behavior would garner him a lot of respect amongst his peers and enemies. Now, over the next few years, he would hustle on the streets and start selling crack on the block. But like many, this would lead to him being arrested in 1986 for being in possession of a controlled substance. And also later, he was arrested for being in possession of a firearm yet again. Now, jail will become a regular occurrence for Jimbo, but on the streets, the war would start to heat up. The Rollin 20 Bloods were at war at the time with their bitter rivals, the Rollin 30 Harlem Crips. Now, multiple shootings, stabbings, and fights would take place amongst both hoods. Now, by the mid-'80s heading into the 90s, LA was considered in its drive-by era. There were walk-up shootings, but a lot of times, drive-by was the way of targeting the enemy. Now, with this war between the Harlems and the Rollin 20 Bloods, by February 1992, Jimbo would be caught up and be arrested for 2 counts of attempted murder. Now, Jimbo was believed to be targeted by the LAPD due to his long rap sheet, streaming back all the way from the 80s. And eventually, the charges against Jimbo will be dropped due to lack of evidence by the DA. Now, Jimbo's street reputation will continue to go up, and he will become one of the most influential Bloods in the city. He'll be considered a 27th Street general, and he will put on a lot of younger members onto the set. Now, Jimbo's hustling in the streets would ultimately catch up to him by 1996, when he will be arrested on drug charges, and by 1997, he will be sentenced to 3 years in state penitentiary. Now, heading into the 2000s, Jimbo would still be in the Rollin 20s hood and still repping that Deuce 7. Now, at the time, the 20s were still at war with their rivals, the Harlems, and bodies were dropping from left to right at this time. Now, while all this was going on and Jimbo was still frontlining it, he still had to make his money, and he had one way of doing that, which was serving the block. And by 2007, Jimbo would be arrested yet again, this time for being in possession of a controlled substance. Ultimately, he would take a plea deal and find himself back behind them walls for the next couple years. But sometime later, he will be out on supervised release, and he had to find some way to stay out of trouble, or he will be sent back. Now, the older Jimbo got, the less active he was, but that didn't stop Jimbo from still going hard for his hood. Now, according to his homie Monster from the Deuce 9, Jimbo would tell him that if he did lose his life, he'll rather lose his life right there in the hood.
Live in the street, you die in the street. Jimbo said he wanted to die in the 20s.
Now, those chilling words from Jimbo would soon become a reality. Now, the 20s were still at war after all these years with the Harlem 30s, whose hood was right next door to theirs. Now, many murders were still occurring between these two hoods, especially during 2016, which included innocent victims and actual members. Now, at this point in his life, Jimbo is up there in age in his 50s, but he was still in the hood, and he had no plans to leave it anytime soon. Jimbo loved the set, and they loved him back. But sadly, death was right around the corner. And on November 9th, 2019, at around midnight, Big Jimbo was posted up on 24th Street, standing in the driveway. Now, Jimbo was unaware that someone was hiding behind a nearby tree. And moments later, that individual would step out and open fire. Jimbo would be hit multiple times as he fell to the ground. The shooter would immediately flee on foot, running south on South Congress Avenue from West 24th Street. Now, neighbors who heard the gunshot would call 911, but sadly, by the time the police and EMTs arrived, 55-year-old Big Jimbo would be pronounced dead at the scene. Now, the family will hold Jimbo's funeral, and there will be over 1,000 people in attendance to celebrate the life of Jimbo. His influence and respect did not only come from his hood, the 20s, but multiple blood hoods around South Central who all respected him.
We called him Big Jimbo. And Jimbo gonna go with these.
Man, it'll never be another Jimbo.
He went to them jails when Bloods wasn't even welcoming him in them jails, and my numbers were so short that we might have been in there. It might have been 4 Bloods and 80 Crips.
Jimbo on Peace Dog. I love you to death, homeboy. You was killed by a fuck nigga, and it seems to be the trend nowadays, so we're gonna try to reverse that, you know what I mean? Some things that need to be done and said off camera, but man, I just want to say, you know what I'm saying, rest in peace to my boy Jimbo.